好，各位，接下来我们将会有请的，那就是3N Associate 律师刘佳瑜 Adelyn Low 嘉义为我们讲解买卖合约下的细节。
Okay, thank you MC for the introduction. Today I would like to talk about matters in relation to the sale and purchase agreement. So firstly, what is a sale and purchase agreement? So basically, it is a contract or an agreement whereby a party agrees to sell and a party agrees to purchase. So in relation to properties, there's actually different types of sale and purchase agreement, depending on the nature of the transaction and the property details, the title details, and what the purchaser wants in a sale and purchase agreement. So let's take an example whereby a purchaser purchases a property from a developer. And in the event if it's a housing accommodation as defined under the Housing Development Contract Licensing Act 1966, a prescribed form of sale and purchase agreement will be used. So we will go into depth of that later. So, or in instances whereby a purchaser purchases from a vendor who purchased the property from another party, we will usually call it a sub-sale case. So sub-sale cases are different from direct developer cases, whereby sub-sale cases usually you can negotiate the terms and conditions of the contract. So different types of transaction will require different types of terms and conditions of the contract in order to protect the client's interests, to ensure the legality of the contract, and to ensure the validity of the contract as well. So for sub-sale cases, usually the clients or the purchasers and the vendor will negotiate on the terms and conditions. So once they are agreeable on the terms and conditions, then they will execute the sale and purchase agreement. Let's talk more about sub-sale cases first. So for sub-sale cases, usually the first thing we do before we draft the sale and purchase agreement is to conduct a land search on the property. Through the land search, we will see who is the proprietor, whether there's any encumbrances on the property, the title details, and whether there's any restriction in interest of the property. So through this, we will draft a sale and purchase agreement. For sub-sale cases, we will look at whether there's any condition precedents to be entered into the sale and purchase agreement. So let's say, like if the property has a restriction in interest, whereby we need to obtain a state consent from the relevant authorities, we will usually need to obtain a state consent, and then after that the contract will become unconditional. So before that, the parties can always enter into the sale and purchase agreement, but it will be a conditional contract. And then sometimes we will look at whether the property is encumbered or not. So for example, previously when the vendor purchases the property, he obtained a loan to finance his purchase of this property. The property will be charged to a bank loan, So at that time, we will need to obtain the redemption statement from the bank, and we will need to pay the redemption sum to the bank before the balance purchase price will be paid to the vendor. This is to ensure that when the purchaser gets the property, it will be free from encumbrances. Sometimes we will also need to look at whether the title is issued or not. So in the event if there's an individual title or when a strata title has been issued already, the terms of the contract will include the transfer of the title. In the event if the property is still under the master title, we will do a deed of assignment, whereby the property will be assigned to the subsequent purchaser, and the assignment will have to be an absolute and valid assignment. Next, the purchasers and the vendors can decide on the manner of payment as well. For sub-sale cases, usually it will be 3+1, whereby the 3 months period will start from the date of the sale and purchase agreement, if there's any condition precedent, where the condition precedent is fulfilled. And then it will become from a conditional contract to an unconditional contract. That's where the time period will start. So usually we will have 1 month extension period, which includes interest in the event if the purchaser cannot disburse the loan within the 3 months period. The parties can also decide on the manner of delivery or vacant possession of the property as well. So sometimes the purchaser will want the property to be delivered within a few working days after the full payment of the purchase price. Sometimes this also depends on whether there's a tenancy on the property or not. So in the event if there's a tenant renting the property and the vendor enters into the sale and purchase agreement, that time the sale might be subject to the tenancy. So this is mostly about sub-sale agreement, but if there's any queries with regard to sub-sale agreement, it's always good to consult your solicitor in charge and let them know about the terms and conditions that you are worried about or if you have any concern about, because they can always provide you legal advice with regards to this. Next, let's talk about the sale and purchase agreement, whereby the purchaser purchases the property from a developer, which we call direct developer cases. So in these instances, if the property is a housing accommodation as defined under the Housing Development Act, which states that a housing accommodation is a building which is constructed or principally constructed for human habitation. So this includes condominiums, apartments as well. Or in the event if it's partially for human habitation or partially from business premises as well, it is also defined as a housing accommodation. So let's take an example where service apartments are also considered as housing accommodations as well. So in the event if the property is a housing accommodation, we will need to use the prescribed form under the Housing Development Act. So there's a few prescribed forms under the Housing Development Act, which we call Schedule G, H, I, or J. So these type of schedules, the terms and conditions, we cannot amend it on ourselves, or the developer side or the purchaser side cannot amend it on their own as well. We will need to obtain approval from the minister or the relevant authorities in order to amend the terms and conditions of the contract. So usually, Schedule H will be the one to use for strata properties of housing accommodations, which in this case, City of Dreams, we also use the Schedule H as the sale and purchase agreement before the property obtains the certificate of completion and compliance. So let's talk more about the sale and purchase agreement under Schedule H. So if we look at Schedule H under the Housing Development Contract Licensing Act 1966 and Housing Development Contract Licensing Regulation 1989, it is under the Sub-Regulation 11.1. It will state that it is a sale and purchase agreement for building or land intended for subdivision into parcels. So the sale and purchase agreement, in the recital, it will state the particulars of the developer, particulars of the proprietor, particulars of the purchaser as well. It will also list down the developer details such as the license number as well. The sale and purchase agreement will also take note on the type of the title of the property. So whether it's leasehold, whether it's freehold as well. It will also list out the master title of the particulars. So the master title is a title of the property before it is subdivided into the individual strata titles. After that, it will state that the purchaser agrees to sell, the proprietor agrees to sell, and the purchaser agrees to purchase the property. It will also state whether the land is charged to any chargee banks. So in the event if the land is charged to a chargee bank, we will need to obtain the redemption statement from the master chargee bank before delivering vacant possession of the property to the purchasers. It will also state the building plans, layout plans, and all the relevant plans where the purchaser will need to know where the parcel is or the common facilities is, and we will usually shade the relevant parcels for the purchaser so they have an idea of what they're purchasing. After that, we will also have down the housing development account details as well. So in the sale and purchase agreement under Schedule H, there will be some interpretations as well. And after that, there will be a clause with regards to the parcel has to be free from agriculture, industrial, and building restrictions. And there is also a clause to state that the parcel have to be free from encumbrances. So this is in the event, like what I mentioned just now, if the property is charged to a master chargee bank. There will be also clauses with regards to the purchase price or manner of payment of purchase price as well. So manner of purchase price is actually stated in the third schedule of the sale and purchase agreement, which we will go into later, because it will state out the relevant stages whereby developer will issue the progressive billing, which will be supported by the architect certificate. After that, they will have some clauses with regards to financial facilities, and in the event if the purchaser would like to obtain a loan from our government or the state government of the PSA as well. There will also be a clause where the purchaser has the right to initiate and maintain action with regards to the sale and purchase agreement. Of course, subject to the terms and conditions of the sale and purchase agreement as well. There's also a clause with regards to late payment interest, whereby in the event if the developer issues the progressive billing, the purchaser will have to pay within 30 days. In the event if the purchaser does not make payment within the time period required, there will be late payment interest chargeable on the unpaid payment by the developer side. After that, we have a clause with regards to defaults as well. So in the event if the purchaser does not make payment of the purchase price, or if they suddenly become bankrupt or enter into a composition or arrangements with the creditors, or breach any of the terms and conditions in the sale purchase agreement, the developer can actually issue a notice of termination. But the notice of termination will be subject to some terms and conditions as stated in the sale purchase agreement. So, like for example, developer, once they issue a notice of termination, they will need to give the purchaser 30 days in order for them to try to rectify the defects, to rectify the breach, After that, we will have a clause with regards to separate strata title as well. The developer side, they will try to obtain a strata title in relation to the property. And after that, the proprietor will sign the Mora 14A, which is the Memorandum of Transfer, to transfer the property to the purchasers. After that, we have some clauses with regards to the position and area of the parcel as well. So usually in the sale and purchase agreement, we will state the area of the parcel, and we will also have the building plans in relation to the property. In the event if there's any discrepancies, we will go according to the sale and purchase agreement, and the purchaser might be able to claim some compensation with regards to the discrepancies. It is also good to note that there are some clauses with regards to the manner of delivery of vacant possession and the time for delivery of vacant possession in relation to the parcels. So the developer will have to deliver the possession of the parcel within the time period as stated in the sale and purchase agreement. If not, there will be a late payment interest chargeable on imposed on the developer side, payable to the purchasers. And that will be 10% on the purchase price calculated on a daily basis until the purchaser receives vacant possession of the parcel. It is also good to note that there are some clauses with regards to some of the rights that the purchaser has in the property as well in the sale and purchase agreement. And I will slowly go through the first schedule, second schedule, and third schedule as well. So first schedule, we actually have the relevant plans such as the site plan, layout plan, floor plan, accessory parcel plan, and the common facilities plans as well. Usually these will be the standard plans in the first schedule. The second schedule will state the common facilities as well, and the third schedule will list out the schedule of payment of the purchase price. The fourth schedule will state the building descriptions as well. So basically, that is the Schedule H, which is the sale and purchase agreement in relation to housing accommodations, which we cannot amend any of the terms and conditions unless we obtain the approval from the minister or the relevant authorities. In conclusion, different types of transactions have different types of sale and purchase agreements unless it's the prescribed form under the Housing Development Act. So actually, if you have any questions with regard to the terms and conditions of the sale and purchase agreement, it's always good to consult your solicitor in charge so that they can give you a clear picture of what the term says or what the contract requires you to do. Because if done right, the sale and purchase agreement is a binding contract, and you have to adhere to the terms and conditions as well. So basically that will be my sharing in relation to the matters for the sale and purchase agreement, and I hope you enjoyed the sharing and I have helped to clarify some of the doubts if you have any with regard to the sale and purchase agreement. So thank you for your attention and thank you for your time as well.